space. Thank you for being here and attending the 5th seminar of the INVESTMED training program. This session will be dedicated to industrial symbiosis and life cycle analysis in businesses. Today we have a very interesting panel of experts that they will share with all of us their experiences on these two topics that are very related to. So just to make a short introduction, what it is relevant about the incorporation of industrial symbiosis in the strategies of the businesses and the incorporation of a life cycle analysis is relevant, not only because it makes more competitive the processes, but also makes a straightforward linkage to the current European policies related to green and digital transitions. Today, we will explore from two different scopes. First, as how the businesses, an example that Veronica will explain us, how to incorporate these topics in and have some explicit examples of this implementation. And then also we will we'll make a review about how research is advancing also in generating and producing information and monitoring about these processes. So let me introduce you the first panelist. She's Verónica Kuchinow. She's founder and CEO of Symbiosis. She founded in 2004 a company named Cicla, and it was one of the first pioneer companies in Spain dedicated to waste recycling and production of products in the base of recycled materials. She's co-founder of Symbiosis and implementing circular economy and industrial symbiosis projects in the territory. She's also president of the Energy and Waste Commission of the Catalan Agricultural Engineers Association, and it's an active member of various national and European entities, think tanks and forums towards circular economy, development of the industrial symbiosis. She's agricultural engineer with several degrees in business management in Spain and China, as well as business design and business innovation. I think Veronica will have a very inspiring example of the application of these concepts. So welcome, Veronica, and give you the floor.
Thank you, Cynthia. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure being here in the seminar, talking about this passionate subject like the industrial symbiosis is. I will explain some examples in Catalonia, and for do this, I will share my screen. Hope everybody is seeing it. When I talk about industrial symbiosis, well, this is my company. We implement industrial symbiosis projects in territories. What I'm saying, when I start explaining what symbiosis is, or industrial symbiosis is, I always like to start with this picture of a forest, because in a forest there is no waste. All the energy comes from the sun. The more diverse the forest is, the more resilient and nicer and bigger and the best it is. So if this happens in nature, where an atom of carbon can be once a wing in a fly and then a leaf in a tree, why can't we do this in our industries? If we take in consideration that the industries also can be part of, in this time, an industrial ecosystem, learning how to share all the resources and work in collaboration just to make a more efficient use of the resources. Like, for example, in this case, where companies make a good use of the organic matter, just only to recover materials, but also like an energy source that can be also be linked to another type of energy sources like water or like other heating extra resources from other companies, etc. So what is industrial symbiosis? First of all, it's a business strategy. If there is no business incentivation, there will not be. So we have to become what we know that it's necessary, make it economically viable. So that's why it's a business strategy. And the clue is that it needs collaboration between companies that traditionally are not linked together, working together, to generate new business opportunities based on the waste resources. So what we do is identify all those business opportunities among the resources that companies are throwing out, even paying for this. What we understand about resources is not only waste, solid waste, like maybe someone always think about, but it's also about energy, about water, about knowledge, logistics, spaces, you know, everything that can be shared and be efficient use. It could be a resource dealing with inside the industrial symbiosis. And this is why, because we want to solve these inefficiencies in this management of the resources, because internally, companies can do whatever they do, and they are very efficient if they can do it by themselves. But there is a line beyond that. You need collaboration to improve the efficiency. And that is where industrial symbiosis work, in this place that it needs the collaboration between companies. And it's not a work of individual, but it's a work of community. What we do is two things, basically. We identified added value to spare resources. Let's see, if you are throwing things, let's see what can be the best done with those. And the other side is, let's explore innovative solutions for resource providing. In other words, what are you buying that maybe we can just switch it to another type of buying inside in the circle of material resources. All this, I insist, needs collaboration, needs a systemic vision of industrial environment, intersectoral focus, industrial ecosystem. We need a lot of companies and from a lot of different types of sectors, because if we only have pine trees in a forest, it's not a forest. So we need a lot of different types of industries working in the industrial ecosystem, a lot of sizes, a lot of sectors, a lot of materials. Just this it's the only way that makes sense to make a resource efficient in the territory. In Catalonia, we started with a pilot project called Manresa in Symbiosis in 2014. And we started as a pilot because we wanted to test all the experiences that in the north of Europe were, since a lot of years being implemented, were based on a cultural thing that maybe northern companies are more used to share things. No, culturally they are prepared to share and collaborate. In the south of Europe, we don't have that that cultural innerage. No, so we had to do it in another way. What we said is that here we did it because there was a very powerful association, business association called Bufalvent, that they were working 25 years together, and they said that it was the moment to work in developing business together, because we work only as association, sharing the industrial area, the lights, the lighting, or the signing, but not business. So this was they were prepared to do this, and we had the support of the public to do this. At the end, we ended with this a relationship between companies. Basically, we had a very, very important sharing of heat, because there was the water treatment plant and the waste solid treatment plant that they were very close together. They could share the facilities and they could share the heat, the biogas. That together with some other companies like iron, steel, and all these types of companies that are giving a lot of heat. All this area was a giving heat area, and in the north part we had a hospital that was the taker, and in the through all this space there was the industrial park where some other companies just also joined, giving some heat, like the laundry, and other just take the heat just to heat the industries or whatever. No, so and on top of this industrial heating exchange, we had another types of heating, like for other types of exchanges. For instance, this company works with polypropylene tubes, bars, big facilities, because they work just manipulating all these materials to build air filtering devices in companies. So in this manipulation, they have a lot of scrap that it was already recycled, but in the same industrial area, there was this company that was extruding bars. So what we did is, and they didn't work with each other. So basically what we did is to present them and try. This company is giving all the scraps to the Lutesor, and Lutesor is extruding the bars that the first one is consuming. So this rounds the circle, closes the circle, and also it makes this company have a client inside the industrial area. So transportation is minimum, there's business development, etc. This is a very easy and funny symbiosis between this company. Fitayer was just cutting some boards just to making decoration for painting and all the scrap things. And they needed some protection material, no? But just in the sides, no, there was another company that was making suits, and they had this, you know, what where they cut it from, and this it was also scrap. So now they don't buy this protecting material. Just they go outside, they go in the side factory, and they take the material to protect the boxes. So and they knew each other. They are working just to make it better for each other, and it's a collaboration that before that happened. No? And also in Manresa, it's nice to have a scrap store that it's the social project, because all these projects in Symbiosis, they have a lot of social potential development in the area. And here they put all together all the materials like buttons, like scraps for the industries, and make all the schools pass through, and all the decoration for Christmas time or whatever. They just have the material, and they also learn about the recycling and the material efficiency and doing in the municipality. You know? At the end, all this ended in an office. It started like a business, public foundation. Now it's also public, but managed by the association, the business association, giving the service to all the companies in the region. We have a lot of projects, 16 projects around Catalonia, 142 municipalities and regions involved. In all between them, we identified 220 opportunities in synergies. And in the basis, we have in the database, we have 18,000 companies. Just go through some of the main projects. This is one of the oldest one as well. And it's nice because 3 municipalities work together because they shared the industrial area. You know, the 3 colors are different municipalities, but they are touching one together. So they said that it was no sense that working municipality by municipality, and they work together. And this is a nice thing because it's not only about synergies between companies, it's also about synergies about the government, you know, the management of all these projects. This project was very, very good in visualizing all the opportunities and the examples, the good examples, the case studies. And they did a very good job in making infographies like this one, showing all the opportunities that they identified in the territory. This other project was in Berguedà. It's in a very more agriculture-based territory. There, what we did is a lot of networking between the the companies, no, the farmers, in fact, because they needed them to understand the potential, the strategic potential of working together in some facilities, investments, or waste use of the waste. Sorry. And what they did is a lot of meetings in the morning, coffees and training, and at the end they also ended with synergies, no, with basically on biogas and energy and organic waste. This is an example of it is now the biggest, one of the biggest, but it's where it's the industrial park in Barcelona. Nearby the port, the airport, so the big companies are there, and they were very good because they could manage that. The managers of the companies were directly involved in this project. This is very interesting, and it's necessary, at least at the beginning, that the people with responsibility in this strategy has to be involved in this project. And afterward, we will end working with the technical people. But at the first stage, it's very important that the companies understands the strategic importance of being part of all this project. No? And this happened here. And it go very fast because the people with decision said, okay, I understand this, I like it, and I will put this and this and this people working in the project. And in this other project, what the companies did is share collecting the waste. They had several companies, big companies with canteens. And I don't know if you know, but in Spain we have a selective collecting of the organic waste in households, in our houses. So, but not it's not compulsory in the companies. What happened here is, okay, if at home you do selective separation and at the office not, it's a little bit strange. So the companies here said, okay, in our canteens, it will be like at home, but we need to collect it, separate it, but also to just transport it to the facilities. And what they put all together and said, okay, let's put a route where the trucks will come once, twice, 3 times a week and collect all the waste from the canteen. Not only the organic waste, but also all the packaging. So they make it 2 routes, and well, it works together. They're collaborating just to make efficient, this time economically viable, collecting of these types of waste. Most of the projects just end with graphics where we just visualized all the opportunities. Not all the opportunities can be done very fast. It takes a long time, but at least they are there. They are identified, and we know how to empirize sometimes, well, most of the times, and we know what to do in every one of them. Not all of them are suitable to do it now. Maybe they have to wait until, sometimes it's the law they have to change. Sometimes it's the cultural thing of the companies. Sometimes it's investment. I don't know, but at least they are all identified in different types of visualization. Here is by sectors. Here is by the loop, the stages of the cycle and design and use and all the cycle. And well, okay, now, and if I have time, I would like to just explain, use more examples. What are they dealing out, these types of synergies in all these projects, no? Cynthia, I think I have.
Yes, no problem. You still have 10 more minutes, 15 minutes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
In this case, for instance, we had a company that was dealing with aromas, fragrances. And for do this, what they do is like making tea, like they put it in a hot water, the whatever type of fruits or the essence they have. And with the water, they do the fragrance. But they have the waste that is sold, the tea bag. And of course, they were doing compost and they were doing good recycling. But in that area, in front of them, they had the facility, the municipal facility for just managing this waste into biogas. And so what they will start, but that facility was only for municipal waste. What we were starting is, okay, let's see how we can just break this barrier and see how this company, it's not a municipality, but it makes worth using this facility, not only because they give a very nice and quality organic waste, but they also need heat to do their process. This is one of the things that we were talking with Provital, but also, and also there was another company, it was this construction company that they had a very powerful innovation research, and they also used all these materials, or part of them, in very light concrete materials, and they are also doing synergies between them. And in this case, it was all the scraps from the interior of the cars, all the carpets, and they were going directly to the disposal. And there was a company that was putting this acoustic walls in the roads or in whatever, and they need it, but in concrete. So they started and say, okay, let's see if we can use this scrap carpet and use it as a material to put it as acoustic wall. And they needed also the help of a third company that was the expert in creating and agglomerating all this waste. No, it was a company in the cork sector, but they had the equipment just to do this. Now it's a new company creating all these acoustic walls and developing a material that a recycled material that has a lot of awards and also since the process was created, they said, okay, let's go for another type of compatible waste, like all the carpet of the expositions. And they also ended with another type of materials for another type of markets, but with the same technology and the same companies involved, except the one of the market. Here they involved a commercialization company that was dealing with using all this like boards, but made with carpet for offices, like this one, another type of decoration. And also they diversified in using the mattresses raised. It's a problem. It's a real big problem in most of the disposal sites because it makes a lot of problems in the structural of the earth and everything. So what they did is use this technology to create acoustic materials with the same technology, but other type of market. This time they just diversed with a construction insulating material company, no? And they're providing them these types of insulating material. So that innovation did through three types of different markets with the same technology. No? And this other example, the wineries in Penedès is a region here in Catalonia that's very important for the wine and cava production. And there is a waste of the production of the cava waste that every big company was trying to manage by themselves. The best way to manage is creating alcohol, but the alcohol companies are chemical companies and they need a lot of investment security. And if you want to compete in the market, then you need to be big and have a lot of. So what at the end, what they did is the two main important companies here, Codorniu and Freixenet, they just went together and said, we are competing for the product, not for our waste. So we're going to work together and create a very big and powerful alcohol producer with our waste. And this is what we did, and they did, and they're succeeding a lot with this company that is not only producing alcohol but a lot of byproducts. Because once you start, keep on going is it's easier, and it's like addictive. No, once you start, you see all the opportunities and say, wait, what I was doing before this. Another example, it's the Thicla, the product that we launched in my first company. this is a bicycle lane separator. And it is made of the plastic covers of the electric wires. And why we did this? Because the electric wire recyclers, they recycle the copper and the aluminum, which is the basis of their activity. No? But they generate huge amount of plastics. It's the covers of all these wires. No? And in these plastics, they are very high quality plastics, but they're all mixed. They try to separate it in different and in different types, but the quality of the separation was not good, and the cost. So the quantity was so much that we said at the end, okay, let's consider it a new raw material, and it's this plastic mix. No? And we started seeing what type of things we could do with this new material. We tested a lot of extruding, injecting molding technologies, different technologies. At the end, we ended with our injection molding technology, a little bit modified, to put it in this product that it was just in that time demanding in the market. No, and it's nice because the electrical wire, all these plastics were designed to be outside, to resist crashes and to resist the sun, and well, it's the application that we find just better suitable for the plastic that were designed for these types of applications. No? So, in a view, what we're doing in Symbiosis is detecting all the inputs. What are the companies needing? Right? And what is that they need that comes outside, importing, and what is produced inside, like production, local production? What are they taking out? What type of waste are they generating? What are they doing with this waste? With the waste that they are throwing, which is the opportunities, because there are technologies to recycle them. If these technologies are there in the territory, yes, let's go and find it. If not, are they outside? So maybe it's interesting to attract investment to that territory, with that type of technology. And very important, we have to work with the market. Okay, we're going to recover materials, but we have to find that the takers of these recycled materials are interested in this thing, and working all together just to make it possible to close the loop. We do it through basically 3 phases. We just start a project and say, okay, we want, first of all, to discover the potential. We want to map the flows of the materials, entering, outside, opportunities. We want to map which are the companies, which are the materials, where they go. Once we know this, in fact, we're detecting the opportunities in this phase, no? But very theoretically. And the second phase is, okay, let's see if these potential opportunities were implemented, what would be the impact economically, environmentally, social impacts, so that we can just demonstrate that maybe with a little bit invest, we have a lot of impact in the territory. So we can engage the investment, the public investment and private ones. No? So we can see and just act with numbers. And then if you want to, then you can just start implementing the industrial symbiosis project, working with the companies and in the territory, no? Not theoretically, but now in the practical. Well, we do this. There are a lot of tools, right? But we use this one because it's the one that better fits with us, and it makes us making this mapping flow of the resources that we can have. No, first of all, we have an industrial ecosystem. What type of companies are there? Which are the companies that are bigger? The ones that let me know all the companies dealing with paper in this type of industrial park. Okay, this is the things that we do this in industrial ecosystem analysis. We can just also know the resources that the companies are consuming. Well, which other companies are consuming more water, energy, what type of energy, etc. And then there are the potentialities of synergies. No? What surplus resources do have opportunities in this ecosystem? No, and which companies are related to? And this is what we do here. To end, I would like to just put down some reflections of industrial symbiosis, some thinkings. I want to say that the symbiotic collaboration rarely appears spontaneously. It needs to be pushed on. For this, it's always needed what we call a facilitator, and it's an proactive promoter that makes things happen. But this facilitating needs money, or it comes from the companies that they foresee this opportunity and they work together and pay for somebody for them to identify these opportunities, or it has to be involved in a public way. Is it the territorial governance, whatever, municipality, regional, that foresees that opportunity and works for the company as a service. This is what the strategy that we are dealing here in Catalonia. It's very, very, very important to collecting data from the resources. We don't have data. Every time industrial symbiosis comes out, there's an interviews and asking the companies again and again, what are their surplus? What do you consume? All this information is unreliable because companies already gave this information hundreds of times, no? So what we're doing is dealing with this public information and try to use it in a different way. So we are recycling public information of the companies to give it back to the companies. We use it in the similar platform that I said before. But it's very important to this, no? Some territories, they don't still have digitalized all the information about waste, for instance, and it's very, very important. There is a lot of environmental collateral benefits, so we have to just take it. It's not only industrial companies, but also social and territorial development. We have to be aware and take it profit of all this. And they promote the business associations. It's a basic thing that companies do not work isolated, but they work in collaboration. And the best thing of working in collaboration is being associated. If it's in a cluster or in an industrial park association, whatever, but working together. And this entity representing the companies is essential to develop the industrial symbiosis project, because if not, the efforts are so big that it's unaffordable. And at the end, it saves cost to the public administration at the end, so that it makes sense that the public administration also gets involved from the beginning in all these types of projects. So what I say is that, okay, this is like a train that now it goes slowly, but once this train, the circular economy train, gets enough passengers, it will start speeding up. And when they speed up, all the companies inside will be nice, and the companies outside will stay up back. So don't lose the train. The industrial symbiosis projects in your territories could be one of those trains, so don't lose it. And this is my last slide. I don't know if you know this. This is from Penedès in this Catalan region. I told you before about wine. It's very typical also to make these castles of people working all together to make huge and spectacular castles of human beings. So it's a nice vision just to visualize the industrial symbiosis collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Veronica. I love this last image because indeed, I think that the strongest thing that you are explaining is the relevance of collaboration, the clustering, the not isolated decisions, but collaborative, community-based from the industry perspective. So thank you very much, Veronica. I have a few questions, but I think that maybe we can have the final round of the other colleagues. But just to mention about you were commenting, no, that normally what we have advanced mainly in European countries in general is how to make the treatment of waste management, but basically is the domestic waste. It's not very used to have the industrial or the commerce. It is advancing, but definitely on industrial areas, it's a very obvious and an opportunity as well to save. This circularity and approach can also means for them save money and to be more efficient. No?
No, that's true. So, the territory has 50% of municipal waste and 50% of industrial waste. And when we talk about waste, when politicians talk about waste, they only talk about the municipal ones because of the public. They have their figures and all this, and it's because they are responsible. Industrial waste are for private companies and management, but it's the half of the waste that we have in the territory. So, okay, it could be managed by privates, it's okay, but you have to be aware of that quantities and where they goes and how it can just synerge with your municipal facilities and your municipal waste, because there are a lot of facilities, not only in waste, on water and in energy. So the urban, industrial urban synergies has to be on the basis of every political decision.
Okay. So let's, there is a comment from Hafadriz that he has the opportunity to work as a project manager on the National Democracy Institute. And yes, you know what it means, right? Okay, so thank you, Veronica. So I will take some notes, and let me give the floor to present Amos. Let me share the screen just a bit. So, sorry. Amos Ncube, he's a PhD candidate for industrial ecology and circular economy. He's from the University of Pathenope in Naples. He's a researcher and he's working in the Realizing the Transition to a Circular Economy Retrace European project. And his role is focused basically on understanding environmental implications of a transition towards the decarbonized economy, with particular focus on agri-food chains, construction, and energy sectors. Amos specifically relies on analyzing and understanding associated environmental consequences, relation resource material flows, and energy stocks with a system context, while applying multiple methods, including life cycle assessment, energy accounting, and stakeholder engagement. His work has been published in several peer-reviewed journals, such as Journal of Cleaner Production, Science of Total Environment, among others. So I'm very, very pleased to welcome Amos. He's joining us from Canada. So thank you very much for the effort, Amos. And I think that your perspective now we will open for from the research point of view, which are the advances that we're having. So the floor is yours, please, Amos.
Yeah, it says I cannot start.
That you cannot share.
Yeah, they say another participant is sharing the screen.
Yes, I can do it. Wait. But you should do.
Okay, I think.
You're available?
Yeah, I think now I'm able to share screen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please, Amos, maybe now you can try, no?
Okay. Yeah, it seems now it's working. And
yeah, if you can put it complete.
Yeah. Okay, seems I'm all set, and I hope everyone can see the screen in full view. Cynthia, can I start?
Yes, please, Amos, please.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for the invitation to share some of our research findings with some of your colleagues within your network. So I'm not going to waste time, but I'm just going forward with my presentation, and I'm going to talk about towards the circular economy and industrial symbiosis, driving business value from life cycle assessment. So I will just give a brief definition of circular economy, what it is all about. So it is an industrial economy that is restorative by intention, and the intentions are to eliminate waste, to also replace fossil-based energy with renewable energy, at the same time eliminating toxic chemicals. And the circular economy concept emerged as a deviation away from the linear economy system, where it's just focusing on take waste and disposal. But with the circular economy system, it intends to be restorative. So some of the benefits of a circular economy are to overcome some of the previous limitations of the linear system. Instead of take, make, and throw away, now with the circular economy, there is a creation of many loops feedbacking to upstream processes and downstream processes. And I think Veronica did a good job in introducing some of the circular economy principles, but in this case, she was focusing on industrial symbiosis. And from a business point of view, a circular economy can be beneficial in the sense that it can offset some sharp price increases, as well as increasing your competitive business advantage, which I will also talk about much later. So the idea of moving towards a circular economy obviously relates to the increased focus on, there has been so much concern regarding climate change impacts, also the depletion of resources, some of them reaching critical tipping points. Also, from a business point of view, it just makes financial sense in that it can foster opportunities related to wealth and employment. Also, the material savings alone have the potential to of an estimated $1 trillion a year, and also moving towards a global circular economy is the only option for long-term sustainability. I'll also talk about that during my presentation. So now we have an emergence of greenwashing in marketing claims. Many companies now, they want to seem to be moving towards green production, green products. Even within the marketing schemes, you find out that even buildings, they say they have green skyscrapers, we are flying green, we produce green energy. Everything is just now considered as green. So because of this, there is a lot of greenwashing, because when you say your product is green, it somehow improves your image as a corporate. And I'll just show you an example here where now even driving a car that is powered by diesel feels so dirty, right? But the new technologies where you can drive a car using an electric powered system. However, some of the sources of electricity are not analyzed, and you think that you are being clean and driving clean. But if you perform some of the LCA analysis, sometimes it may not be true. I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm saying there is need to quantify some of these claims. And therefore, I move to my next focus area, where we talk about circular economy and the transition to a sustainable society. I will briefly talk about this paper that we published, where we created a roadmap that can help and guide organizations to perform circular economy assessments based on different pillars of sustainability, which are environmental, economic, and social. My main strength relies on environmental impacts, but however, within our research project group, we also analyze economic and social impact. So this is a conceptual framework for circular economy measurements, where for environmental assessments, the main methods that are usually used are life cycle assessments. I see when I shared my profile, there was a correction where I wrote energy accounting. It is actually energy accounting, which refers to the analysis of natural capital, which comes from the solar system. So we also analyze the contribution of nature to anthropogenic processes. Unfortunately, with LCA, it only starts with human-induced materials. But with energy accounting, we consider even the background in terms of past memory. So we want to also highlight the contribution of natural capital to your system. Then for economic systems, there is sometimes there is the application of life cycle costing. And for social impacts, the social LCA. This conceptual framework is not comprehensive. I'm aware of other methods that can be applied for economic analysis and social analysis. So I will move on to sharing with you some industrial symbiosis examples and implementation case studies where we focused on upgrading wineries to biorefineries within a circular economy perspective using an Italian case study. In this case, we analyzed the whole winemaking supply chain from the agricultural process up to the extraction of wine from grapes up to the final wine bottle. But in this analysis, we did not consider the consumption side because it is a bit subjective and very difficult to collect data because consumption patterns of individuals vary. So in this case study, we analyzed a linear system whereby there is no use of byproducts whatsoever. It's just you produce your wine, that's it. And so we just analyzed the environmental impacts. Then we created different scenarios where we asked ourselves different questions within the concept of industrial symbiosis, circular economy. How about if we utilize some of the byproducts that are considered as waste to recover bio-based energy chemicals? And then we can replace some of the fossil-based raw materials that have been used in the upstream processes. And let's analyze this and see if there is ever going to be any change in order to be able to make some of these environmental claims, because any green or circular economy intention does not always mean that it is sustainable. So it is very important to do these comparisons and also evaluate any transitions or interventions rather. So our final results, when we compare the linear system without the utilization of byproducts versus a system where byproducts were reused into the upstream processes. I have highlighted the results in red and green just to highlight some of the benefits. Green of course, just showing that this is a green, it's positive. The environmental benefits were positive, and red just indicates that the linear system is not favorable. So for those that are in businesses, I'm sure within our audience, we have many people that are in business. So I'll focus on the on climate change. I will leave other impact categories. For those that may be interested, you may, of course, follow the published paper, which is available online. But I will focus on climate change. As you know, as businesses now, many listed companies now are required to report on non-financial disclosures through ESG reports, environment, social, and governance reports. So within your environmental reporting, you need to highlight and show your internal and external stakeholders and investors how you are contributing towards reducing global emissions. So with the interventions that we applied in this case study, we can see that there was a reduction of greenhouse gases by almost 2 to 3 times as a result of the reuse of waste, which in the context of a circular economy are now byproducts where you can recover useful chemicals and materials. So this is one case study that we worked on. We also looked at the utilization of fly ash in Zimbabwe. Fly ash disposal is a huge problem faced by industries in Zimbabwe because at the moment the country does not have adequate disposal facilities for fly ash. So we again identified this problem and asked ourselves, what can you do with this fly ash within the concept of a circular economy? So we wrote a paper focusing on moving towards resource efficiency and circular economy in the brick manufacturing sector in Zimbabwe. So by using fly ash, in fact, the fly ash was used to replace clay soils. So as we know, clay soils are needed to support strong agricultural systems. A strong agricultural system will eventually ensure there is food security. So with this intervention, we were trying to protect our arable lands through avoiding the extraction of clay soils, but rather using fly ash as a replacement for clay soils. So we again analyzed a natural system, business as usual, where there is that use, 100% use of fly ash, 100% use of clay to make a brick. Then we created different scenarios where we had to categorize the components of fly ash that can be added within your brick manufacturing. Like, for example, you add 10% fly ash, 25% fly ash, and 100% fly ash. And as you can see, I'll focus again on global warming, greenhouse gas related to climate change reductions. You will see from these results that with 100% fly ash replacing clay, there is significant reduction in terms of carbon emissions. So as you write those reports, ESG reports or corporate reports, non-financial disclosures, these are some of the interesting issues and results to put on your reports in order to convince stakeholders, investors, or even regulatory authorities in your respective countries. We also worked on another case study here in Canada where there is an emerging interest on renewable natural gas, which can be obtained from organic waste. So we analyzed a system, a business as usual system of processing and treating organic waste that has been collected to produce biogas without upgrading biogas to renewable natural gas. We also then considered an upgrade of biogas to renewable natural gas, and we analyzed our system based on these different scenarios. And in the end, we're able to compare an electricity that has been obtained from biogas versus the electricity that has been obtained from the national grid. And we compared the results again just to see whether or not this makes a lot of sense, because again, I want to emphasize that despite the good intentions of transitioning towards a circular economy, it may not be obvious that you will reduce environmental impact. Sometimes it can even be worse. Sometimes you may even create other problems for other industries. So it's important to always measure and monitor our progress as we move towards a circular economy. So some of the areas that are highlighted in red, these are areas of concern, because whenever an intervention is brought in, there is need to construct new facilities. We use other materials from different supply chains like steel, and a lot of other materials. So these were some of the hotspots that we identified. Of course, when we present some of these results to industry, they don't like it. Again, this relates to the issue of greenwashing, where every company wants to be seen as being green and sometimes hiding some of this information, but it has to come out so that we can find improvement options and reduce environmental or rather contribute towards reducing the impact of climate change. So of course, the byproducts that are obtained, the bio-based byproducts that are obtained from this process, they perform much better as compared to fossil-based, but they are not always green in many cases if you analyze the whole supply chain. So it's important to identify some of these hotspots so that we can find improvement options and truly contribute to reducing climate change, and also produce corporate sustainability reports that are true to the actual situation. This is an interesting one. We looked at the potential energy savings from circular economy scenarios based on construction and agri-food waste. And this aligns to what Veronica has been sharing with us during the first session, where there has to be synergies even with different sectors. In this case, we looked at construction and agri-food waste, where for agri-food waste, we were looking at the use of hemp byproducts, cannabis byproducts to make green concrete. And again, because of this suggested intervention, it's important again to always measure to see if it's true to the environmental intentions. And again, environmental impacts seem to decrease the more you use these byproducts within a circular economy. So I'm trying not to get much into the details, because in each of these papers, there is a lot of calculations that go on. Like, for example, the winery paper, we considered an exergy analysis where we were we actually look at the potential of a chemical or a substance to perform actual work. So I may not go into those details, but just highlighting to you how this may be important from a business point of view, highlighting how these reductions are important in terms of sustainability report writing, if our audience is mainly business people. So from these LCA results, how does this help us? For example, how do I communicate my LCA results to benefit businesses, right? So after the completion of an LCA, the real work actually begins in terms of implementing. You know, like it's okay to show these figures. It looks nice and it's quite promising, and you think that tomorrow our climate change problems will disappear. But the main problem is on implementation. So how do we implement as businesses? We will require, of course, top level management's commitment towards that. And the approach that in my opinion, that I think works is actually a top-down approach in this case. But then when it comes to making sure that things happen, of course, a bottom-up approach may work. But however, these results can be used for various applications, including marketing, you know, and to some of the customers nowadays, they are more enlightened towards the sustainability issues. But, you know, when you look at it, when you buy a product, sometimes it has to show you and tell you how it was produced. So also it helps in terms of research and development. And at the same time, it also helps from a strategic point of view, because an LCA helps you to identify certain problematic areas. So for example, in the winery paper, the problematic area was actually the use of pesticides and fertilizers and chemical fertilizers. So these are the areas that you may want to improve as a company or as an industry. Like, for example, one of the interventions would be the need to use organic-based fertilizers. If it's for pesticides, you also need to follow through the supply chain, talk to your suppliers, the producers, to also contribute in terms of climate, global emission reductions. So, now, in terms of emission reductions, I'm focusing on this because I see a lot of ESG reports from corporates. They are spending so much time telling us how they are reducing their emissions. And sometimes I find some of these reports quite ambitious, such that you would think that tomorrow we're not going to have climate-related problems. So the traditional offsetting system really has been like 1 ton of CO2 that has been emitted. If you add it to the avoided CO2 that might have been emitted somewhere, that you actually are assuming that it might have been emitted somewhere because I've done this intervention, is equal to your 1 ton of CO2 that is emitted. But what we actually need is actual carbon removals, where we have to target net zero emissions. And many countries, many organizations, they seem to have committed to move towards net zero carbon emissions. So there has to be a sink, it has to be removed by industrial symbiosis interventions, circular economy interventions. And I think at this point, I'm done with my presentation. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, Amos. It's very, very interesting, all the research that you have been working with related to circular economy, precisely to industrial symbiosis. I think that you strengthen what also Veronica was commenting, in the sense of the necessity of a strong commitment in different layers, from the commitment in terms of policies, but also on the ground with the stakeholders. No, finally, if there is no willingness from the stakeholders to incorporate new or to switch their processes into a different way, it's more harder. And also, I very appreciate that you constantly are commenting that it is worth it to measure, it's worth it to estimate, not only to have the numbers, but also to have the proper decision. Sometimes we are thinking that just increasing the reduction of any material, but we need to have this holistic view of the implementation. So it's nice, and finally, not to really reduce and remove carbon not allocated in other place.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amos. So I will, if you don't mind, I mean, we have just a few, the questions. Okay, so if you agree, we will collect all these questions and share it with all, so that you can all have some comments. Thank you, Amos. So I will present now our third panelist. He's, okay, here. So it's Nelson Manjong. He's also PhD at Industrial Engineering Group from the University of Norway. He is working in Industrial Ecology Research Group and has obtained an industrial engineer from the École Nationale Supérieure Polytechnique de Yaoundé, Cameroon. In 2014, he has received also a master in renewable energy engineering from the Pan-African University of Water and Energy Sciences and the Abu Bakr University of Tlemcen in Algeria. So he has been working in Finland with the sustainable energy transition for Central Africa. He has his current research focuses, it's on attaining sustainability in lithium-ion battery value chains using a combination of life cycle assessment, value chain modeling, and resource criticality assessment. So we will jump from agri-food systems into the energy sector. So welcome, Nelson. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you properly.
Thank you. I'll share my screen now. I don't know which of my screens you're seeing.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, Cynthia, for the opportunity to share what I've been working on life cycle assessment. And I would try to communicate the results, to communicate more from how we can convert our results to more sustainable business decisions. So a brief bio about my research group. So I'm from Industrial Ecology program at the NTNU in Norway, and I'm working on the energy transport and the buildings research group. We have other research teams that also focus on ecosystem and bioresources. And we have people also working on circular economy and resources, as well as sustainable production and consumption of resources. So today I would share with you life cycle assessment, basically of the transport sector. But before we do that, I just call on everyone to be a little bit interactive. So I know we've been listening to the presentations for quite some time now. So if you can maybe pick out your smartphone or go to your browser and you type this website menti.com and you put the password. We just want to have an understanding of the audience and also to have a pool of some of the things that concerns LCA and the industries we work in. So if you're there, just let me know. So if you're there, you're going to see the questions. So if you just go to menti.com, you can put in the code and we would see if we can have some interactive session for about 2 or 3 minutes.
Yes, of course. I think that if everybody can go to the website of I put it on the chat. Then you just put the password.
Yes, the passcode 87429500. Oh, we have first response on the type of industry. So I guess they are about 36 participants. So we expect to have more or less 36 answers or around about that.
Okay, maybe if I don't know if the people are going to join Nelson, or are you
so I was just to get a pool on this, but I'm not sure if
okay,
it's probably
now we
going to take,
see.
yeah, I think that people are answering, but it's taking some time.
Yes. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
everybody goes into the page, but I think that we have a few.
Yeah. Well, it's not super important, but it's just to get a feel of the audience. Not to waste much time on this, so we go to the next question. So I guess we had 4 answers, so we expect similar 5 answers. Just type the word and then you submit. Yeah.
I like that one. Diverse, multitask.
Yeah. Great.
Sustainability.
Okay, I think that we probably would move to the next slide. Research. Okay, great. Engineering. Yeah, nice. And well, how well do you know LCA? Now, I guess that we've had good lectures on LCA so far and industrial symbiosis, so I think we are good now. So we have 2 experts. 3 experts. Okay, so we go to the next and the last question, which is the view of LCA in business, and then we would continue with our presentation. Great. I think everyone agrees that LCA is extremely important in business. So we're just going to continue from here now. So I think we are all aligned that LCA is a very wonderful tool on the operational level, but it's also very important in business. And we're just going to go through the basics. I think we've already seen this, the LCA thing, which is a systematic assessment of the potential environmental impacts of products and services. And not to waste much time on this because Amos has already spoken so much about that. So I'll just go to the next slide. And the objective on this slide is to try and to draw the system boundary. And this is mostly related to the transport sector, where we have decarbonization of the transport sector through using electric vehicles. So there is a very strong need for raw material extraction, particularly the specialty metals like nickel, cobalt, and manganese that are being used to develop the batteries. And then we have the production of the batteries and the electric vehicles. We have the use phase and the maintenance. Then we have disposal and or recycling. And these are the phases of the life of the life cycle of the product that are really very important to consider. And what we see that at each phase of the production process, there are some consumption of utilities and metals and some emissions that occur. And all we want to do is to be able to draw the right system boundary, evaluate the right amount of input into the material, and then the necessary output so we can quantify the resources. So generally, the system boundaries are very, very important in LCA. And I think that from the business perspective, having the right system boundary is really, really key to be able to assess how much impacts your business has on the overall production or the supply chain. So this is a very important consideration, getting the system boundary correctly. And here is an example of one of the LCAs we did for waste collection in Finland. And here we had various scenarios where you'd have incineration of the waste, we would have recycling of the plastics, anaerobic digestion, and then we have composting and landfilling. So we had to test which of these scenarios were the best and how we would combine some of these scenarios to form the best waste treatment options. So this is just to show you an example of how the system boundaries and some of the work that we've done on LCA. Now, the general role in LCA is to get the emissions and then calculate the impacts. And the results are quite obvious, I think, right? Everyone would understand the results from kind of intuitively. If you look at this, if you look at the result here, we would see that, well, landfilling and incinerator, this one performs relatively better. And again, composting and anaerobic digestion, this one performs relatively better with the system boundary in question. Now, the results sometimes are quite obvious, but what we've been doing at NTNU recently is that we want to go from traditional conventional LCAs to more process and engineering based LCAs. So instead of doing these LCAs, what we realize is that these results can change really drastically when you change some of the process parameters. And we realize, like, if you want to really perform very good LCAs, you should pay a lot of attention to what are the parameters that are defining the process. And sometimes we are looking at the efficiency of the process, like the process recoveries. We are looking at the efficiencies of the equipment. We are looking at process-dependent variables. We are looking at technology-dependent variables and also resource-dependent variables. And what we realize is that going from the conventional LCA results, you can have things that start to be quite complex to understand, right? It's not so difficult, but if you don't understand it intuitively, you have to look at what are the processes, what parameters, and how these parameters affect the result. And what we see here is one of the LCAs that we did for mineral extraction for different metals. So we are seeing that if you change just the grade of the ore that you're extracting, what is going to happen is that your impacts are going to change. And in a way, there's no particular trend, right? And you have to pay attention to this, especially when you are a company or a business. You have to pay attention to your production process, your parameters. What do you need to optimize? And therefore, we see that the LCA results are not so obvious, right? You cannot understand it intuitively, like in the case of in the previous slide I just presented. So what the key takeaway from this slide is, process-dependent LCAs are now becoming the norm. And that's one of the things that at NTNU, we are trying to develop models that on one side, we interface engineering models, developing the process-based model, and then interfacing this with life cycle assessment. And the overall importance in this is that, well, it gives you an idea of what processes are changing and how the variations in these processes change the impact. And this is really, really important, especially in climate mitigation strategies. You need to see what parameters should be taken into consideration. So overall, whether we are looking at process-dependent LCAs or the conventional LCAs, what we see is that the results communicate three things: efficiency of the processes, efficiency of the products, and efficiency of the interventions. And the LCA results could communicate all of these interventions in one. And the question is, but who really cares, right? Like, why are we so interested in the LCAs, in the processes? What is driving the impacts and all of these things concerning sustainability? And the simple answer is, well, there are lots of people who actually care. And if you look at the statistic, you see that about 80% of companies that have revenue greater than $250 million actually have sustainability or reduction of greenhouse gas emissions as one of their corporate strategies. And you see that at many levels, we have institutions, we have companies, and we have diverse people that are actually driving the concept of sustainability. And majorly using a combination of industrial symbiosis, life cycle assessment, material flow analysis, and other sustainability criteria like material criticality. So it means that there is a huge gravitation towards the direction of sustainability at every level. And this is a key takeaway from many businesses and research organizations, that there's a lot of funding, there's a lot of business opportunities in this direction. Now, but the real thing is, if we really care, so what's needed? And I really like this slide because it goes to complement what Amos was already saying about greenwashing, is that sometimes the results of the LCA do not really communicate the reality. And here we have the 7 deadly sins that could happen when you're performing an LCA, right? You could hide something and then you choose a wrong product. You could have greenwashing. And these are the things that businesses need to put into consideration when performing the LCA. Are you transparent enough? Do you have proof? Do you understand the processes? And importantly, you're not greenwashing. Your results must be transparent to the point that you can communicate them clearly. And this is really challenging, especially for businesses when they set a top-down key performance indicator that we want to achieve this emission at this level. And then because LCA and all of these industrial ecology tools, most of them are bottom-up, you see that in doing the calculations, you'd realize that, well, your impacts are somehow more than what probably has been communicated to the stakeholders. And then the question is, what do you do? So this is really important, that even if you care, if you're committing one of these things, then it's not helping anybody at any level. And this is a call for many businesses, that we have to commit to transparency. We have to commit to the relevance of the LCA, and also to ensure that there is no greenwashing in the results that we are communicating. So now the next question is, so what's expected of us as researchers and as business people or project managers and engineers? The first probable way to control something, as it's always said, is to measure it. But in LCA and in sustainability, you have to measure it correctly, right? You have to get your inventory right, and you have to get your assessments right. And then if you are able to do this, you cannot communicate your results correctly to the audience. So now I'm just going to rush through this before I step into sharing about what we have done in the last slide. So we've already talked about this in Amos' presentation, LCA as a tool for competitive advantage and product branding you have to go from the questions, what is the best practice? Where are we now? And how can we get to where we want to go to? And in most cases, you have to do a hybrid bottom-up to understand where you are before you set a top-down key performance indicator. These kind of approaches are really, really important. And also LCA for product development, eco-design, and eco-innovation. So I'm not going to spend so much time on this. And then I go to what we're really focusing at the NTNU in the research group, which is decarbonization of the land transport sector. And the simple question that we're asking is, can electric vehicles decarbonize the transport sector? And this is a very, very important question to answer, because at many levels, there is the intuitive conclusion that, well, if you get an electric vehicle, you are automatically contributing to saving the world. But in one of the research that was done by one of my colleagues, what she found out was that, well, if you compare an electric vehicle and a diesel engine or an internal combustion engine, as we collectively call them, you would see that if you look at the manufacturing stage of the electric vehicle is more carbon intensive than that of the internal combustion engines. And this is principally due to the development of the battery or the lithium-ion battery, which we are going to look at in the next slide. And if you look at the operation, now we begin to get a feel of what it means to operate your electric vehicle with the right electricity source. In this case, if you're using coal, then your electric vehicle could be more carbon intensive than internal combustion engines. And this is really very important. And that's why we need LCA to drive some of these business decisions. That if you're a country where the electricity is mainly coal, there's no point for you to buy an electric vehicle. If you're in a country where the grid, if you look at the European mix, which is a combination of different energy resources, you would see like, okay, it does make sense to have an electric vehicle averagely in Europe. But again, within individual countries in Europe, the dynamics change because some countries use more carbon intensive electricities than the others. So this is a very important message from using electric vehicles to decarbonize the transport sector. And if you look at the end of life, this is fairly the same across the internal combustion engine and the electric vehicle. So what we are seeing here is the contribution of battery in the production process. And this is really very important because we see that if you have to develop an electric vehicle, you should pay attention also to how much emissions are coming from your battery. And then this is what I'm going to talk about in the next slide. So if you look at sustainable transport, is this a new business model? And to answer this question, if you look at the number of battery manufacturing facilities that are projected to be developed in Europe in the next 10 years, you would see that there is a large emergence of battery development facilities at every level. And this is just for Europe, but the same case is in Asia, the same in the US and Australia, even some parts of South America. So we see that, well, there is a huge gravitation towards sustainable transport, but the battery remains the key, and also the electricity used in charging the electric vehicle in the operation phase. So the question is, what is the implication of this sustainable transport? The very first thing is that there is going to be a very large demand in the raw materials we have from the specialty metals. And we see this is million tons of material demand. So it's going to be so much enormous that there are possibilities that this could trigger sustainability constraints along the value chain. And then the second thing is the financing that is going into sustainable transport. You would see that between 2019 and 2025, it's projected that the investments would grow by almost 31.4% to achieve about $137 billion. And we see why there's a lot of traction in this direction to develop batteries. But from our research perspective, we know that because there's a lot of financing in this direction, there is a need to ensure that the value chains and the production process are sustainable. So what we have been working on is how can we decarbonize the battery value chains? And what, as I presented some of the results earlier, what we want to do here is to see how we can integrate process models to conventional LCA. And I'm not going to explain what each of these mean, but the idea here is at each process stage, there are parameters that are driving impacts at that stage. And if you're able to capture those parameters correctly, you can attribute what mitigation strategies should occur at what level of the value chain. And this is the important message that we have here. And so we have some of the results, and you see the results that are showing here, they're showing in intervals. And the takeaway from here is that each country, if you take a given country, they would be located on certain points along this box plot. But we kept it simple like this, not to avoid showing where countries lie, just to give an idea of the spread of the impacts along the value chains. And the idea is certain countries, certain value chains have certain different impacts, and you cannot generalize when you're performing an LCA. So I want to conclude with this slide because I think my time is over. And is that so far we've talked on LCA, industrial symbiosis, and we have the tendency to lean towards the environmental dimension. But it's equally important that we have a complementary study that looks at how we can interface the environmental, the economic, and the social dimensions. And this is one of the studies that we recently completed with some of our partners in Germany, where we are looking at if you're developing battery solutions, how do you complement the environmental impacts performed using life cycle assessments with the socioeconomic dimensions. From the economic dimension, we are looking at the criticality of the material. And this is also very important for businesses. Is your supply chain critical? How do you solve the problems of material criticality along the supply chain? So, and then we also looked at the social dimension, and this is something that sometimes is often left out because there is a big focus on the environmental dimension, but we think that it's also important that, especially along the battery value chains, we look at what are the social impacts of the value chain? What are the social impacts of the production process? So putting all of this, we realize that if you're going to put all these different criteria or these dimensions into one, you're going to have to make certain trade-offs. Trade-offs become unavoidable because at one point, you would have very good impacts on the environmental side, but on the social aspect, you can be performing really badly. So you must take a trade-off, a well-balanced trade-off between these dimensions. So as conclusion, LCA is just not a tool for, it's not only a tool for academia, but you can also have to also incorporate this in the business decision, in project management. And our conclusion is, with the global business competition, we think with LCA, the winner is the one who is more sustainable, and you can achieve that with LCA. So thank you very much. You can contact me on this email address, or you can also check me on ResearchGate.
Thank you very much, Nelson. It's been a very interesting presentation, and all the information that you provided about the transport and the battery value and the apply the life cycle analysis into the batteries. I think it's, in my opinion, not only for transport, but actually with the energy transition and the role of self-consumption of renewable energy communities, batteries become a key element or component, a facility that if we manage to have as much a sustainable process, that would be a very good advance. Thank you, Nelson. And also to remark, I think the three of you, and I will ask to Amos and Veronica to open the cameras so that we can have a round of questions, because you three comment one thing about the data, no? Not only the necessity to have a monitoring system, but have the proper data and to have it properly estimated. because it's a complex process in terms of analysis, and it requires I mean you can be lost very easy. So okay, and this is, and I will link it to one of the first questions on the chat, because it's Amir Asghari. He said asked to address to Veronica, sorry. So how could you convince business owners or the other bodies that your solutions are beneficial for them or for the investors?
With data.
With that.
And with LCA, either it's, you have to, it's like, I don't know if it's in English will work, but in Spanish we say las cuentas y los cuentos, no? It's the stories and the real and the data, no? You can tell a story and convince it because it's nice and you, oh, okay, maybe I agree. But if then you, on top of that, give some figures and say, if you do this, you have this impact, this benefit, whatever, with data, I think it's the only way. Well, it's a matter of, you have to will to do that. You have to understand why it's strategic, but you have to demonstrate why it's, no?
Exactly, the evidence, no?
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, Nelson Ivamos, do you want to add regarding the data?
Yeah, it's nowadays actually many listed companies are expressing this information through their ESG reports. So if you check online, any company, major companies, actually, it's now mandatory for them to publish these ESG reports. And again, this also complements what Nelson was just saying, that from the environmental data that you have, there's also some social implications that are there. So it's also reported in those ESG reports. So this is how, for a start, you can convince internal and mainly external stakeholders.
Yeah, I think I agree with Veronica and Amos that I think one important thing that companies are looking at is, how can we improve? How can we use what we have to improve to make better decisions and also to make profits? And with the right data, if they can be able to see what I think resource efficiency would contribute to reducing their demand for raw materials, how if they can harness the waste, for example, that would reduce maybe the cost that they're using in purchasing the raw materials, they would be interested. And I think that so far, the data has been a major problem for people to reach these decisions. And we have to find out the right ways to measure the processes. What are the efficiencies? Because in some cases, in our process models, what we realized was just increasing maybe the efficiency by 2% would really reduce the impact. But how do you really measure the increase in efficiency by 2%? Companies don't really know that. So with the right amount of data, they can see, well, increasing our efficiency, we are going to even reduce energy consumption in the long term by this amount. So it's really important, the quality of the data and also how the assessments are done. But also the long-term vision is also what companies need to have.
And in that sense, I would like to ask you, because we are all as I was saying at the beginning, in a green and digital transition. So digitalization and all this strategy of industrial strategy that we are facing, and the industry of 5.0, does this, in your opinion, this is accelerating the incorporation of this approach, or by accelerating, we are getting a bit, I would like to know your opinion about this. I mean, the impact of digitalization right now. I mean, because just to summarize, what we're looking among your presentations is how to research it's advancing quickly, but at the same time, experiences like the one from Symbiosis with Veronica's team. How does this bridge and finally gets into a more accelerated implementation? So if digitalization can be a potential path.
Okay, we'll start. I think there are two levels of data of information that it's needed in all these things. One is the real detailed information that you need for companies just to demonstrate them their good decisions in what materials, what processes, where to go. No, and it's a very sharp data that you need. And then there is the territorial, regional data that you only need some approx, and it's not the same one, but you also need it. Vale? Maybe you need more different type of data in the regional one, right? Or very different types of the other ones. What I mean is, digitalization of the industry is very, very, very important. I think it's basic for all this moving towards circular economy, where we have to manage the resources while circulating the economy. To manage means to know where they are in which moment and what impact and everything. But maybe I think it's more important for the first thing, for the details in the companies, than for the regional one. Or I think it would be different because and use it in different ways. Sometimes when we find companies saying, well, I don't want to share data because it's confidential. I don't need your confidential data. Let me know if it's yes or no. Do you have this material or not? And if it's more than 50, the details of your formula in this level, but I also need. So I think it's more important than the first thing for individual, but I think it's also useful in other terms in the regional level.
The scale dimension.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will add from what Veronica has said, but I'm taking a different dimension where I come from a research background where my focus is in terms of, seeing whether or not introduced interventions are actually doing as what we intended them to do, right? Like, for example, the digitization efforts like Industry 4.0, it's good in terms of improving efficiency, reducing resources, right? But the rebound effects might be increased consumption. The more we digitize, the more we easily access things, the more we consume. In the long term, the problem that we might have is we now have problems of excessive consumption as a result of increased digitization and easy access to anything you want. So it's just a cautionary remark in terms of the digitization drive.
Yeah, that's a very, please, Nelson.
Yes, so I just wanted to add that in addition to what Veronica and Amos have said, there is also a major drawback that comes with digitalization, which is that it entails a new way of working and a restructuring of many things at the level of the organization. And some companies are not very open to accepting, well, we're going to restructure the way we collect our data, the way we manage our data. And this is something that it's a bit of a challenge at a certain level of implementing it. When you bring in a new digital tool, probably someone is less inclined to accept it because, well, it entails a restructuring of many things. But on the positive side, it also has a lot of benefits, like Amos and Veronica also pointed out, where you can have a high resource efficiency from your products and a lot of many good things. But again, one needs to balance it up very nicely.
Thank you, Nelson. Yes, and I think that of course the tools, like that digitalization can help us, but it's more. We must not forget or have very, very on mind that the organization and this systemic vision, it's important to mainstream it on the territories from the very small scale to the region. So just to link with because mostly of the colleagues that are connected today with us, They are basically mainly from Egypt, Tunisia, and Lebanon countries. So what would you recommend, or what would you think for in the framework of the Mediterranean region and Africa itself? Which are the challenging for implementing or advancing on circularity approaches and industrial symbiosis?
Maybe I will start on this one. I'm from Africa myself, right? I understand the landscape and some of the challenges we have actually. And just from the panel, I'm actually happy that there is Nelson, who's also from Africa. It's something that you don't usually find in many seminars, you know. It's more Eurocentric. And so it's good that we now have even young people starting to collect data, because the main problem is data. We don't have much of the things we start doing. It's more like a copy and paste models. Like, okay, the European Commission has launched a new policy on circular economy, right? Us as Africa, let's just, you know, twist it a little bit. In the way it's written, Europe, we just say Africa. I've seen that happening quite a lot of time, but now we need tailor-made solutions for African problems, where we start from the bottom, collecting the needed information for development, the introduction of these concepts like circular economy. Like, for example, with circular economy, it's not new for Africa. It has always been there. Like in our culture, if my brother is wearing these clothes, sometimes he just gives me, you know, we have this culture of sharing, because, you know, we are not that consumptive in Africa. So we end up sharing even from basic clothes. So my contribution would be that for countries in Africa, including the ones in North of Africa, the main thing is we need to now start collecting our own data, which is related to Africa. Like, for example, the LCA database, the other challenge that it has is it's more Eurocentric. You don't find African inventories, African database there. So we actually, as a contribution, we recently submitted a paper to the Journal of Cleaner Production, where we explore the potential of a circular economy in Africa. And we raise those issues that we need Afrocentric databases that speak to the African landscape, you know? So, yeah, so, I mean, that's for a start. But of course, there are other more technical things that are then needed. But if we don't do the basics, we will keep maybe relying on other regions to lead the way for us.
Okay, thank you, Amos. Veronica, you wanted?
Well, I think that the problems Amos just put on the table, I think that every country in the world has them. So it's not of Africa and India or Asia. I think it's an issue that every human being has to learn to do the different businesses in a different way. And these new businesses, different way of doing business, need information, different types of data. So it's a thing of, it's a matter of I think it's very common in every place, no? But what is very important is in all this thing, there should be a political commitment and involvement in all this, because okay, maybe the companies are the tractor, the motor, no, the engine that's moving all this, but the politics are going to make the roads so these engines can come through smoothly, and we need passengers just to use them, no? So but it's basic, and it's not. I think that some of them are, but they still see it as a business thing, you know, like, okay, it's like you do it, and oh, you have this problem with data, okay, you will solve it, because there are also some technological information companies, they will solve it. No, sorry, it's your data that I need. No? Or I need you to collect this data. I need you to make this databases common for everybody, just to have the same numbers, compare the figures. And this has to be harmonized, and not only individual regions, but the whole thing. So I think that all Mediterranean basin could be a very good opportunity just to manage and to start linking African data with European data. I think around the Mediterranean that we have a lot of relationship. It would be a good way just to start linking it to this.
Exactly. Thank you, Veronica. Now, so do you want to add
yes,
just a final remark?
I agree with Veronica and Amos. Like there is the need for efficient policies, and so far we don't have clearly stated policies, or there is no information where to find what policies concerning these things, and this is a real problem. The policies, sometimes they even exist, but they're not well documented. So you don't know that maybe if you have a startup that deals in circular economy, you don't have to pay taxes. Probably it's there, but it's not documented, and then no one knows about it. So I think that we have to document our policies really correctly, and then we have to, there's the need to make information go around. So that would also start a wave of people showing interest in these things, because I think that at one point, the interest is not there because there is no motivation around it. So no one really sees why should I be thinking about this at an individual level? So I think that we have to really work towards the policy direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cynthia, can I just comment regarding the circular economy transition? Like some are now saying circular economy might be capitalism 2.0, because there's always some winners and losers. Like I want to contextualize this with Africa, right? Versus, for example, Europe or China. These different countries, they have different motives, right? Like, for example, African countries are more relying on the extractive industry, where we extract our raw materials. They are not processed yet, but they might have to be processed in China. Then Europe is more consumptive, right? So with all these different needs, like for example, with the introduction of circular economy within the global setup, if our countries are not careful in terms of prioritizing their needs and where they depend on in terms of their economies, they might lose. Like for example, nowadays, there's more of substituting and replacing raw materials with new materials because of circular economy, industrial symbiosis, right? So where you were supposed to buy raw materials from Africa, you no longer need them, right? So that means you will lose in this train of circular economy. So it's very important for each and every government, not only countries in Africa, but for all the governments, to be strategic and see what they need from the circular economy. Like if it's Africa, like I originally come from Zimbabwe, right? We depend on mining. So how do we strategize and make sure that within the mining sector, we still have a position even as we transition to circular economy? Because in the end, there are winners and losers as products and materials exchange.
Exactly. I think in general, and I agree with Veronica, that from any place in the world should address the commitment to see first its territory, which are the resources, which are the ecosystem of the industry that we have allocated locally. So then we can enlarge on the strength, even the local economy, and for sure to encourage a more proper trade in the sense of more respectful, not only for environment, but also in a social impact. Okay, so we're getting into the final and the end of the webinar. I would like to thank you, the three of you. It has been a pleasure to have you, the three, and the different scopes that you are working with, but everybody with the same common denominator of industrial symbiosis and life cycle assessment. We will share the recording with the colleagues, so if, and also the presentations, if you agree with that. We welcome you to come and to connect in any moment. And then for all the attendees, thank you very much to be present today, and we will update you for the upcoming seminars in the next months. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.